Hey everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. I made a bit of a break from social media and YouTube. I have not posted anything. I took in another cat. He's a stray and I decided to call him Mars because he has a bit of a fiery character. He is about 4 or 5 years old, or so the vet told me, because we don't know, and we've been trying to find his owner, but he was very hungry, so we thought that he maybe never had owners at all. I took him to the vet to get a passport and to vaccinate him, and I also, of course, wanted to castrate him because for some reason, and that is the funny part of this whole story, for some reason we thought he's a boy. My mom and my neighbors looked at him and were like, that's a boy. He has a boy face. I don't know what it means, honestly, but they were like, that's a boy face. It's a boy cat. I sent him out for castration and carried him to the vet, only to get a call half an hour later from the vet that said this cat doesn't have testicles, which probably means it's a girl, right? And he asked me if he should continue the surgery and go for a sterilization instead. And of course, it seemed like the most logical decision. The guy performs the surgery and calls me again. He says, this is not a girl. This was a boy at some point, but he had a urinary illness and he went through a surgery in which the outside genitalia of a cat is cut off to create other genitalia so he could pee. So it turned out it was a boy, and my parents were right when they looked at his face and somehow came to the conclusion that it's a boy, though throughout this whole thing, they were going through such a gender crisis and it was hilarious. We cut him open for no reason though, and I have a lot of shame about this still. He is recovering nicely, so I hope that it's gonna be a lesson for us, although the vet said that there was no way for him to know that he went through this surgery. So now Mars is recovering. He's at my parents'. I'm technically staying at my parents'. I came to my apartment for a day to water the plants and just check on things. And I'm coming back to look after him. That is my update. I will probably be more present on YouTube, but not on other social media. And that is everything that I can tell you right now. I'm going to move to the actual content of this video. Recently, or not so recently now, I asked you to leave your unpopular bookish opinions through my Curious Cat account, and you came through. Today I'm going to react to them, and I just love these types of videos. I watch them all the time. Let's just go through your unpopular opinions. There were quite a few interesting and actually unpopular ones. Usually when you start these kinds of videos, the first few unpopular opinions are very popular and safe. So, unpopular opinion. I think that sometimes problematic LGBT plus content is better. It's just more interesting, and I miss the messy gays sometimes. I agree. I think I'm at this point of my life where I don't need idols anymore. I don't really need the good representation, and I think as a community we find it really hard to move on from the idea that not every single character in media has to represent our experience. There are a lot of queer people out there, and they have a variety of different stories. They're influenced not only by the culture where they were raised, the family they were brought up in, but also them personally. And I think we're seeing more and more media where it's represented, where the creators are tentatively being a bit more risque on a large scale, on a mass media scale. I think there's still a shortage of characters that are not critiqued for being not enough of that or not enough of this. I do agree with this opinion. I think it's more popular with older queer people. Younger queer people not only don't have access to a lot of queer media, they also perceive things through a narrow point of view because they just don't have enough experience. And I think that's why we see a lot of picking apart of characters, especially on social media. It also doesn't mean that we no longer need coming out narratives or that we don't need young adult fiction specifically for queer young adults. I think there is still value for PG-13, PG queer media because kids need to see themselves and their experiences on screen. And while it can be adult media, let's be real. If you're from my generation and you're queer, you're probably watching a lot of stuff that you shouldn't have when you were younger because that's the only media that you could find yourself in. I watched a lot of very explicit content when I was a teenager, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with me because I watched it, but I think that I would have loved something to be catered to me at the time. So I think both of these things can coexist. That was a very deep one for the first question. I've got a lot of opinions on book covers and I think I'm going to group them. I don't know if it's unpopular, but I don't care about covers. I do most of my reading on Kindle Unlimited and a lot of the covers are not good. So this opinion is interesting to me because I work in marketing. As a marketing person and a person that is trained to look at the package, I gotta say that covers do matter. If you're the person that left this opinion, don't get me wrong, you're allowed to not care about the covers, and a lot of beginner authors that don't have a lot of money to put into the product are gonna be happy that there are people that don't care about the cover. But the cover is extremely important to me, I think, because it indicates what kind of audience you're writing this book for, and it really can make or break the book. I do understand that a person in theory would care less about the cover if they don't have to show it to other people, but also when it comes to picking up product, even if this product is cheap or free, you still unconsciously led to certain books. Even if the cover is bad, maybe something about the picture still lured you in. Another opinion, which I think is going to be extremely unpopular with a lot of romance booktubers and romance readers in general. Also, I think this one was a second opinion, but the first one was not about covers, so I skipped it. Also, I like cute cartoon romance covers. And when it comes to this one, don't threaten me in the comments down below. I kind of agree. I understand why the covers with naked torsos or couples or just characters, photos of people, models are important. They do signal the level of heat usually, but when it comes to cartoon covers, I think they're just collectibles in a way. I like looking at them. I also really like cute art and art in general. I also don't mind closed door romances. Sex is not an important part of a romance story for me personally. I know that some people do not read books without steam. For me, the most important part of the romance that I'm going to remember, is a romance where the characters are truly vulnerable. Everything else doesn't matter to me as much. There was another opinion about covers. Male models on dark romance covers look the same to me. I guess, yeah. Personally, all men look the same to me. I mean, I can differentiate between brunettes and redheads and blondes, and by skin color, and also by age, I guess. But otherwise, yeah, I guess I agree. I'm not going to lie, there is a trend among dark romances of a specific type of man that is put on those covers. It's the tall, dark, and handsome type. It never came out of fashion somehow. Moving on to not book cover related opinions. This one was juicy. And oof, I have an opinion about that too. Book Twitter constantly picks on booktokers and it gives jealousy. Sorry. I kinda agree. I think there is a bit of jealousy there, and I'm only judging based on my own experience. When BookTok blew up, I was a bit jelly myself too, because TikToks take significantly less time to create. A lot of them are jokes, a lot of them are recommendations, with people just pulling stuff from their shelves and not talking about the book all that much because the TikToks are supposed to be short. And with YouTube, you actually eat up a lot of your free time. So I felt a bit miffed, not going to lie. Not only they spend a bit less time, they also, because of the virality of the platform, immediately got sponsorships and relationships with publishers, huge audiences, which is something that cannot be done quickly on YouTube. YouTube is like a whole different platform. It's confusing, it's hard to achieve things on it, and I think there is an element of jealousy when creators on other platforms complaining about BookTok, because they do get more resources, but they've spent less time cultivating their audiences. I also think that we need to think back to bloggers versus booktubers, because that was also a big beefy situation. At the time when booktube was just a baby in a cradle, there was a big thing between bloggers and booktubers, because bloggers were losing audiences to booktubers and they spent the same energy and time on their blogs. So this issue existed before. It was just between two different platforms. The next opinion is about romances. If the romance is good, I can ignore a few plot holes. I sometimes am overly critical of things, and especially if I see something that annoys me personally, like really annoys me, I then start being overly critical of every single other thing that I encounter in a book. Even if I love a romance and there is still this annoying thing that I don't like, I can't give you an example right now. Instead of focusing on something that I love, I'm going to focus on something that I hate and will constantly notice it. And it will ruin my experience with the book. Corruption arcs are superior to redemption arcs. I think at this point, in 2022, it's a very popular opinion. Corruption arcs became quite a trend in fantasy and in romances. It's certainly a trend and is becoming more and more popular. I love both personally. I love a corruption arc, I love a redemption arc. There are certain elements in both of this that I need to love a piece of work. For me, a redemption arc at this point can't end with the character dying, because I am fed up with this trope, and I love it when the corruption arc is slow and subtle and unapologetic at the end. Audiobooks give certain books an unfair advantage, in my opinion. Okay. What do you mean, an unfair advantage? I think maybe they mean that the voice actor is very important, and I definitely agree. There are certain books that people can't get through when they read them with their eyes, and they can get through with an audiobook, and they actually really enjoy the book on audio. I think sometimes maybe audiobook production makes the book better. It definitely happened to me a couple of times with Alice's Feeney, Rock, Paper, Scissors, definitely with Sadie. I think some people find it easier to read fantasy books through audio. I personally don't find it easier. I drop the audiobook like hot potato because I just can't focus. So I guess audiobooks can give unfair advantage to a book and can give an unfair disadvantage to a book too. Another romance opinion, this one is hot. All the booktubers I'm subscribed to are reading mostly romance now, and I wish they still liked fantasy as much as I do. Wow. It's honestly a shady opinion because it also is about me. I think a lot of people are discovering romance and they're just very excited about a new genre. Also, I think more people started reading romance during the pandemic and it makes a lot of sense. But I also don't want this to come off as if romance is not a good enough genre to be enjoyed on its own, and it's only a genre that people gravitate to when shit hits the fan. I think it's a very legitimate genre on its own. A lot of people loved it before the pandemic. A lot of people that are discovering it right now are going to love it after the pandemic. And the only advice I can give you is there are a lot of fantasy booktubers out there. A lot of them. I don't follow many because I don't read as much fantasy anymore, but they're constantly recommended to me still by YouTube. Try to use the YouTube search and look for my favorite fantasy books types of videos, and then YouTube is going to recommend you booktubers that read fantasy. That's how it works. It's very easy. The last opinion that you've left for me is childhood friends to lovers is better than anything else, I guess. I gotta say that it's hard for me to agree. I'm not even a big fan of friends to lovers as a concept because it's something that I can't imagine, and I think we project a lot of ourselves into romance as a genre. Childhood friends to lovers is a bit different. I think all the friends to lovers that I loved in the past were childhood friends to lovers. So between childhood friends to lovers and friends to lovers, I will always choose childhood friends to lovers, especially if there was a rift between them at some point in their lives and they met again. It works better for me. Those are all unpopular opinions that you've left for me. If you want to discuss my reactions to those opinions or those opinions in general in the comments down below, welcome. I think quite a few of them were juicy. I'm really proud of you. You went there and it made for a quality video. This is all I wanted to do today. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to go wash my sink and I'll see you soon with another video. But until then,